Welcome to the Health Rant of the Week, episode 9. My name is Alejandro Flores, certified fitness trainer and nutrition coach with Altus Fitness. Today I'm going to talk about a topic that I have called the resurgence of the world currency. It's a resurgence of an old currency, actually. And for you to understand a little bit where I'm going, I am actually going to talk about a little bit about history. All right? So bear with me for a minute. This is completely related to what I'm saying. In 1933, Adolf Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany. In 1934, Adolf Hitler self-proclaims the leader of Germany after President Hindenburg's death, right? So he went on to just proclaim himself the leader of Germany. That's it, not the president necessarily, but the leader of Germany. So between 1934 and 1936, Germany went from being in the worst depression up to date in their history after the First World War, then the consequences of the crash in 29, the stock crash in the US. The world actually suffered a lot from those events. And by early 1930s, Germany was in a deep depression. As I said, partly consequence of war and the stock market, like the wave that created the stock market crash in 1929. So by 1936, only 3 years after him becoming the Chancellor of Germany, and basically effectively 2 years after him becoming the leader of the country, Germany went from the worst depression that they remembered and the highest unemployment rates in the 3 million or something like that to virtually no unemployment and to being a thriving economy again, only 3 years, effectively 2 years later. Now, we all know what happened. Like in the meantime, something was cooking, right? So the huge war industry had been in a parallel fashion, had been building up, and most people, like the common citizens, didn't know about it. So when the time came, by 1936, in the Far East, like in Japan, things had already started heating up a lot, and then they had already started invading China. All right. So at the same time, two other dictators in the area, Benito Mussolini and Franco, had started, just solidifying their the ruling, right, the leadership. Now, part of what Hitler did really well is he started a spiel of hatred, saying that basically what had happened in the First World War was partly because Germany had been betrayed from within by two types of people or ideologies / religions, which were like the Bolsheviks and the Jews, right? Now, that was the leverage that he used to start indoctrinating people so that they would avoid history repeating itself according to him. So that was his very own take on what happened. So he started calling Germans to action. Okay, we all know what happened later. What happened? It's just history. It was a horrifying episode of history that everyone would like to forget, and it kind of makes you wonder why, looking back, you see like a peaceful or seemingly peaceful progressive, country and culture like Germany, how did it become or how did it play along with the monstrosities that happened in Second World War to communists, Jews, Christians. The death toll amongst Christians in general was, for one reason or another, maybe an excuse, was pretty high as well. But it was a monstrosity what happened, right? So fast forward to today, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and I am just quoting these things because we are facing a currency that has been used for millennia to get people to act sometimes in irrational ways. And that currency is called fear. All right, so call it propaganda, like in the case of war, but it's nothing more than fear. Fear will drive decent people to commit atrocious or stupid, and sometimes, like some cases, they may not be atrocious, but stupid acts. All right, so right now we're in the middle of the pandemic. Right now, we all know by now that we're talking about a vaccine, and the rumor of or the pushing for a global vaccination, all right, just to avoid what has happened with the pandemic. All right, now this is not war. We're not in the middle of war, unless it's like the war against like like illness, if you want to call it that way. But one thing is certain: we are still being victims of propaganda in a different way right now, because we are hearing more and more about the it's just the virus, and we are not hearing enough about how do you survive the virus, how do you reduce your like risk of infection. And it's not necessarily using like masks and things like that. I mean, yes, it's good to just wash your hands and all that stuff, but we're in the middle of a pandemic that is pushing the idea of a global vaccination. I wonder why, if you see the numbers of H1N1 deaths provided by the same organization, which is the World Health Organization, how come that is not scary enough for you to pitch a global vaccination campaign? And this is. You do know that some people with big pockets are behind this whole scenario, pushing and putting their own money and campaigning on the media for this to happen, while some other people, like I'm not going to say who those people are. You probably know who they are by now, but there's other people that have been making a lot of noise. Some of them doctors, some of them very reputable people, some of them in the immune research industry one way or another, some other people being like biochemists, nutritionists, and doctors that are saying otherwise, that the answer is not in a vaccination, because if you see the stats of the death toll or the people that have been affected and have actually died, there is an imminent incidence of deficiencies and pre-existing conditions that is as high as like 99%. Like if you listen to, for example, Rhonda Patrick, she's been saying, like, she commented on like some stats, I think it's Indonesia, where Indonesia, like 98.4% of the people that were infected by the virus and died had a severe deficiency of vitamin D. Once again, we're not going to get into the correlation, causation topic right now, because that's not what it is. But you do want to, it kind of makes you have to wonder. You have to wonder, why are we not pushing that strongly about a preventive method to cope with this? And we are once again pushing, or we're hearing the push about a vaccination. People, let me put it this way, nice and bluntly: vaccination is not prevention. Okay, taking a medication for you not to get a virus that you could avoid or minimize the risk or the impact, even if you get it, by having a strong immune system. That is not about prevention. We're not talking prevention here. We're talking about pushing something that is a bunch of chemicals, a bunch of toxins in many cases that are people, I do already know people that are like waiting for the actual, official vaccine to come out to go and run and get it, as if, their hypertension, type 2 diabetes, or like all the autoimmune deficiencies that they have are not going to make them vulnerable to, if it's not the COVID, to anything else, and it's just going to kill them anyways, or it's just going to make them suffer for as long as they're alive, right? So this one is very serious. So the currency, yes, it's fear, and it has been used. It has been used by the Romans. It has been used, by Napoleon in France. It has been used. It was used by the Spartans. It's been used by the Nazis. It's been used by, right now, it's being used by like the people with big pockets pushing their own agenda behind the scenes for people to end up running like crazy to get something that they don't necessarily need, or it's not necessarily the answer to their health. The answer to their health is doing the things that you or most people are not doing, which is taking charge. And the prevention means make sure that you're having like your intake of nutrient dense foods is closely monitored. You don't have any vitamin, mineral, phytonutrient deficiencies, that you don't have like high blood pressure, you don't have like high like visceral fat, that you have well managed like stress levels, cortisol levels, and things like that are going to weaken your immune system. So those things are much more relevant, and they're much more effective than you just running out and getting a vaccine. Much like Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, like he talks about like AIDS, like HIV not being AIDS, because the reason that, like, the fact that you have an autoimmune deficiency doesn't mean that you're gonna catch or you're gonna like produce the symptoms that are going to kill you. And that's why he actually refers to certain populations in Africa where there's a vast majority of the population that they have the HIV positive. However, they don't have AIDS, and they never contract. Some of them never contract the AIDS. All right. So this is what I'm trying to say. The answer is not run and get something into your body that is possibly going to further weaken your immune system, but it's going to supposedly protect you against a very specific threat, where by targeting the core of what causes all these illnesses is what's actually the answer, right? So still the same thing, propaganda, fear. Please beware, okay? Please beware. I'm not saying that certain medications or vaccinations or anything that comes from the pharmaceutical industry doesn't have a use, or it's not meant for like a higher cause or purpose. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that it's not the answer to everything. It's not a pill for every ill, and what's happening behind the stage is very, very serious. All right, sorry about that. So once again, the call is for to create awareness, to navigate through the noise, and to look at both sides, both coins, both sides of the coin. All right, both faces, and draw your own conclusions and start taking action. All right. Once again, thank you very much. I hope this brief history lesson helps not to repeat itself and not to have consequences that you are actually going to regret later on. All right. So I'll see you next week for another Health Rant of the week. Thank you for joining me. Please subscribe, like, comment, and I'll be happy to give you my feedback and, of course, to receive your feedback. Alejandro Flori, certified fitness trainer and nutrition coach with Alta Fit.